Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. I'm Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian, and kick.
Just one kick? That's
Punch!
all you got?
Okay.
All you need is one kick if you kick like Bruce Lee, Josh.
I guess he kicks people a lot though in this movie. I don't think he's not necessarily just the one kick guy. I mean, his opponents, they come at him hard.
I mean, that flying
takes
chest
some effort.
kick, though, he takes you out with that thing right there.
He does. We certainly would be no match for Bruce Lee, I think.
Dave thinks it's Liu Kang from Mortal Kombat. He's like, he stole that move from Liu Kang.
Puzzle piece.
Right. Yeah. There you go for the next Mortal Kombat movie.
Yes.
In this season of Awesome Movie Year, we're talking about the films of 1971, and we're here at our foreign film episode to talk about the Bruce Lee film, The Big Boss, the sort of re-debut of Bruce Lee in Hong Kong cinema. I admit I was not aware of the background, the full background, I guess, of Bruce Lee's career. I knew he had been on TV, on the Green Hornet and done some stuff in the US. And then he went to Hong Kong and did these martial arts movies, and that helped him become an even bigger international star. But I didn't realize that he had started as a child actor in Hong Kong and done all of these movies when he was a kid and a teenager in like the 1950s, which I had never known about.
I'm glad you're finally willing to admit that. Took a lot of off-air conversations, me and Dave saying, Josh, you can just own this, So, I didn't know that either, Josh.
All right. Well, now we both know it.
And that feels really good, doesn't it? It's like a weight off of our collective shoulders.
I mean, it's interesting, though, because those movies are not particularly well known outside of China and are not particularly accessible either, it seems like, to stream or to watch here in the US. So people don't think of them in the general conception of Bruce Lee's career. We think of him having done the Green Hornet and done this stuff in the US. And then he made these big martial arts movies, only a handful, though, of course, because he died so young. But these movies, starting with The Big Boss, just catapulted him to this major international stardom.
Yeah, when we talk about the biggest box office hits of all time, pretty much all of the Bruce Lee movies, at least the first few, fit in there as far as return on investment, Blair Witch style, just insane profits based on the budget and what the box office was in return.
Right. I mean, it's insane. This movie ultimately grossed $50 million worldwide on its budget of just $100,000. And it grossed $16.2 million in the US, which is impressive, really, for a movie of this scale, a movie that's not, I mean, it was dubbed into English when it was released in the US, but still not originally in English, not from a US studio at this time, in this time period, for a movie like that to make that much money. We've talked a bunch this season about kind of like drive-in movies, whether that's like A Bay of Blood or Let's Scare Jessica to Death, these movies that get retitled and shown to these exploitation audiences. And that's just kind of the niche where they stay, and they're profitable because they're cheap to make. But this movie, I feel like, expanded beyond just that niche.
Unless it was like every drive-through in the country was full for every show for like 7 months, I would have to agree with you, Josh. It's clearly and this did well.
It's possible. I'm sure that was the case for a while. I mean, I think it's popular in those kinds of theaters. And again, looking for reviews of this, it's similar to when I was looking at reviews of A Bay of Blood, and there's a reviewer who spends half the review complaining about being at having the wrong show. And there was a review here where because of the retitling, this movie was released in the US in 1973 under the title Fists of Fury, plural.
Which is really confusing.
Because Bruce Lee's next movie, which I believe was released, although it was made after this, it was released in the US before this, was called Fist of Fury, singular. And in the US was retitled something different, but people knew that. So yeah, there's one review that spends half the review trying to explain to the audience that this is not that movie Fist of Fury. This is Fists of Fury. It's a different movie. And people in the theater were confused because they'd already seen the other one. So there's a lot of that going on.
And that happened again with him with Game of Death, which was kind of released a little bit before he died. And then it was like reconfigured in a different way, also named Game of Death after he died, but it was a different story. It was a lot of confusion with how they're releasing these Bruce Lee movies, Josh.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, and that was a hallmark of, I mean, we'll talk later maybe about all the fake Bruce Lee movies and fake Bruce Lees that existed after Bruce Lee died, because he was such a hot commodity. But I think before that, a lot of this was what happened so much with foreign films in the US during this period. And again, like Giallo movies that we've talked about, things like that, where these American distributors pick them up and they basically do what they want. They dub them into English, they dub them poorly, they change the title, they re-edit them, all this stuff. And audiences don't necessarily know that's happening.
If I was renaming it, I would call it Kick.
Well, that's why you were not the head of a B-movie distributor in the 1970s, I think.
I mean, wouldn't that be like a great gig, though? B-movie distributor in the 70s? Like, how much fun would that be? Man, how skeezy we would be in our tight polyester pants and our button-down shirts that are form-fitting and one too many buttons open, so our medallions are hanging out, Josh.
I'm finding the real reason that you want to do this, and it does not have anything to do with movies. It's about fashion, I think, is what's going on there.
Lots of good fashion from the bad guys in Bruce Lee movies, I'll tell you that much.
Yes. So this was the highest grossing Hong Kong film of all time until the following year when Bruce Lee made another movie. So like hugely successful, not just in the US, but worldwide. And it's interesting that, it took a while to get to the US because the producers had to be and distributors had to be convinced that this was something that audiences would want to watch beyond the Hong Kong market or the Asian market or whatever. And of course, people everywhere wanted to see it. So it took a while to get out there. It was the first in a 2-film deal that Bruce Lee had signed with the production company Golden Harvest after he had trouble kind of getting projects off the ground in the US and decided to go back to Hong Kong. And directed and written by Lo Wei, who was a fixture of Hong Kong cinema and martial arts cinema, and replaced the original director after a couple days of production, thanks to being the husband of the producer. So that's always nice.
Lo Wei also helped launch the career of Jackie Chan.
He did, yeah. He was a major influential figure in this genre for a very long time. And
Way to go, Lo.
Prior to this, I mean, I think that's probably why, other than being married to the producer, that he was brought in, because he was a pro who'd made tons of these movies already and could get things done with this film.
Well, he I think exceeded all expectations based on box office results there, right?
Right. No, exactly. And this is a movie that was made for relatively cheap. It was made mostly in Thailand, and that's the story of Bruce Lee's character coming from China to Thailand to get a job and to live with his 8 million cousins. And I mean, not that the story of this movie is super complicated or even important, but that's the idea. He works at this ice factory that's a front for drug smuggling and takes down the big boss.
There's Thailand, there's cocaine smuggling and ice. There's underground kumites.
Right.
There's
blood sport.
It's a lot of roughnecks over there, Josh.
Yeah, I feel like it's a place where a lot of these martial arts things are set, and maybe it is a rough place, but also a cheap place to shoot a movie is, I feel like, a lot of the motivation as well.
And full of heroes like Bruce Lee, Frank Dux, and Ong Bak.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Those are one of those is a real person's name.
One we're talking about.
One of those is a character name, and one of those is a movie name.
Frank Dux is a real person too, I think.
Is that the Van guy? Damme, is there a real guy that Van Damme played in Bloodsport?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm almost positive of that.
All right. So. Tony Jaa is the star of Ong Bak, not a person's name.
He's the way of the warrior.
Yeah. Anyway, Bruce Lee is the guy that we're talking about here. So When this movie did make its way to the US, I did have a bit of a tough time finding reviews because, like things like A Bay of Blood, it's not a movie that was necessarily shown at a big premiere for the media. These critics had to go find it at a sort of disreputable, second run theater or something like that. But it was treated mostly as a curiosity. And these reviews it's not even that they're negative. They're just kind of condescending and perhaps vaguely racist. So, which I
No
guess is to
way.
be expected. Yeah.
So
So
weird.
J. Oliver Prescott in the Tampa Bay Times
Definitely
said,
not a racist guy.
no, not at all. Fists of Fury, aka the Big Boss, is not so masterful a piece of filmmaking as it is wonderfully naive and ever active. All this nonsense is merely an excuse to show fast action, incredibly staged fight sequences. Never is anything more important than a fight of 10 to 1, unless it is the honor of the painfully oversimplified Chinese woman or the deep reverence paid to age and wisdom. But there is a marked difference between the violent Eastern and the violent Western. The latter has gone out of its way to make the gore seem real. The Eastern exaggerates the violence to such an extent that we find ourselves laughing more than flinching. It is an entertainment that allows us to experience an objective laugh rather than a subjective hypnosis.
Well, I didn't find that racist, I have to admit. But
No. There's nothing really super racist in any of these, but it's just that there actually are a lot of racist headlines related to with the words chopsaki show up a lot. Yeah. But no, the reviews are, again, it's more just like treating it as like this weird curiosity, you know?
Yeah.
The thing that I picked out from that is Bruce Lee was the star of Hong Kong cinema who really pushed for the fights to be more realistic as opposed to over the top. So, and I didn't really think any of yes, the numbers 10 on 1, I'll give you that, but you weren't watching this other than those like super jumps over the fence and stuff, which he didn't want in there anyway. Those were the only things where you're like, this is an unbelievable situation.
Yeah, I mean, there are other cartoonish aspects. I mean, they really dial up the sound effects, which is I think a hallmark of a lot of earlier martial arts cinema.
I'm into, just sorry to interrupt, but I love that. It's like, as a Wu-Tang guy, I want that in that 70s Hong Kong cinema. Cause like, if you listen to them, the sound effects, when a bad guy lands a punch, there's a different sound effect when the good guy when Bruce Lee lands a punch. So like, I actually think it enhances what they're going for. And, all those kind of hallmarks of like those snap zooms and like, oh, we're on the wrong subject, let's push over real fast. Like, it's hard not to think about like how masterful Tarantino did those things in Kill Bill, which you're like, he probably just watched every Hong Kong action movie for, weeks, years, months on end. But I like those kitschy things that separate it from other kind of action movies.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just saying that those are not realistic aspects. They, the sound effects. And I mean, there's a lot of, I think what we expect now out of martial arts movies or action movies is like these very intricately choreographed scenes where all of the movements are visible to us and you can follow it. We talked about John Wick, and that's a huge aspect of that. But even going to something like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon that we did an episode on, and that is far from a realistic movie. But the fluid motions of all the characters are something that you can watch and you can follow. And there's a lot more cuts, I think, here. And there's a lot more scenes where it's like the kick is coming toward the camera or the punch is coming toward the camera, and you don't necessarily see the interaction between the characters, and the choreography is less intricate.
It's visceral, and yeah, I think it's cut on emotion, so to speak. But part of that also, I wonder, Josh, is because this is the early 70s, is that a building block towards getting the things that you have discussed? Like, you're not seeing this or this, but like, did we need this type of movie to give us the building block to get to those kind of fight sequences?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's true, because it's not like there are other martial arts movies from this period where you do see that necessarily. I mean, maybe wuxia movies are a little more, fluid, because that's the tradition that Crouching Tiger is taking from. But I've seen other low budget cheapo kind of exploitation martial arts movies from this period. And you're right. It took time, I think, to build that up and to build up a whole level of appreciation and respect and support for making a movie like this, right? So you could spend more than $100,000 on your martial arts movie and it wasn't treated like some weird novelty by critics, and that took time. And when it became something that you could take seriously, then you could devote more effort to it. So I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a building block.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Andrew Reschke in the Syracuse Herald-Journal said, "The Oriental arts of Kung Fu and karate are making big hits these days on American screens, both big and little. The latest edition on the big screen is loaded with displays of the forms of defense, although there's little to attract the viewer besides the violence. The film is one series of nearly unending battles between the forces of good and evil, with the final conflict involving Chang, Bruce Lee, and the leader of the drug operation. From this viewer's vantage point, the karate and kung fu displayed exceeds the bounds of reality. It takes a lot of imagination to believe all the stunts shown. But the effect keeps you interested, trying to discover just which stunts shown are possible. Bruce Lee will be seen in a series of these Chinese-produced films, and any acting ability that he might have was not apparent from this effort."
I mean, I'm going to leave that last part be. I think he's obviously charismatic. We're talking about him, 50 years later. I do agree the biggest thing, and I'm guessing, Josh, you agree, we haven't discussed this, but, other than the fights, there's really nothing going on in this.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's not uncommon for martial arts movies or action movies in general. I mean, you could talk about big Hollywood action movies now that are just built around that and nothing else. But I agree.
Well, the issue is, though, I would say a lot of the ones nowadays you would be right on, but they would be just all over the movie. The fights are a little too and far, between, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, and when he says in that review, like, oh, it's an unending series of battles, like, it really isn't. There is a lot of downtime here where Chang, Bruce Lee's character, is like having angst about all his cousins and, they're trying to figure out what's going on at the factory, or they're just having little interactions with people, and none of it is interesting at all.
And really quite unbelievable, like not really good detective work, fellas. If everyone keeps going to visit the big boss and then they end up not coming back, maybe they're not all on trips.
Right. It was one thing at the beginning of the movie, right? They talk about old Wang or whatever, and the cousins are all asking Bruce Lee, like, what's up with him? We heard he went back to the hometown. And Bruce Lee's like, I don't know, I haven't seen him. But it was just one guy, one old guy. You can believe, oh, he decided to go back home. But when multiple cousins of yours have all gone missing within the space of a few days, it does become a little more suspicious.
Old Wang, Gina's nickname for Dave in the bedroom.
Ah, very good.
That's thank you for that contribution. So the other thing I want to say,
not me,
about the assessment of Bruce Lee's acting is these critics are all watching this in a dubbed English language version. Like, It's really hard to assess someone's acting that way, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you don't think like of course we're watching him at this point in time, but don't you think he is the center of attention and a worthy center of attention in every scene that he's in?
Yeah, but I mean, he's the center of attention for his fighting abilities mostly. And not that I think he's a bad actor. He definitely has that charisma and he has those good looks and he's great at fighting. And this isn't the kind of movie that calls for a lot of complex emotional performance per se. And also he died so young. We don't know how he might have evolved as an actor or as a performer over time. So, but he is the center of attention, deservedly. Although the other weird thing about the structure of this movie is that his character has supposedly renounced violence. And so for the first half of the movie, he barely fights. And we have the one cousin of his who is a really good fighter, played by James Tien, who was a big martial arts star in Hong Kong already. And he's kind of the center of attention for part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously is a trope that works. The idea of, I promise I'd never fight again or anything. And that not just in, martial arts movies. Like, I love that in Unforgiven. But Unforgiven is actually a good one to bring up because that build, that like simmering over a boiling point where you're ready for it to explode really pays off. Whereas here you're like, dude, just go kick his ass already.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Unforgiven has a lot of rich drama to it and really fascinating characters that you are interested in spending time with before we get to the confrontations. And here, that's not the case. I mean, if they've tried to give you something to hold on to with the idea of, the family and traveling to another country and having to work to maybe send money home or whatever, things like that, it just doesn't really, there's not anything to it.
No,
Definitely.
I agree.
Yes. So finally, Geoff Wong in the Sacramento Union said, "Those who see a spiritual or philosophical benefit in Kung Fu will be sorely disappointed. Unlike the TV feature, which dwells heavily on the mental aspect of the martial art, the film features flying kicks to the groin rather than soaring thoughts of the mind. If you thought the battle between Billy Jack and the Rednecks was sensational, you'll be overwhelmed by the mayhem inflicted by Bruce Lee single-handedly on over 30 bad guys. Although his acting abilities are limited, Lee does convey a strong sense of virility. Blessed with ruggedly handsome looks, Lee should do well in movies. After all, Clint Eastwood is similarly described as a handsome, masculine dude, and no one ever accuses Eastwood of being an exceptional actor."
I guess I don't really know why that has to do with anything there.
Yeah, it's weird to me
Clint
that
Eastwood there,
he's saying that about Clint Eastwood. I feel like even in 1973, people did think that he was a good actor.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's a little hard on Bruce Lee, here because he already was a presence in America with the Green Hornet. So, and like you said, he was a child actor. You're not going to be a working child actor for 10 years if you don't bring something to the table. So, I'm a little unsure why they're all picking on Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is that sort of like vaguely racist condescension, like, oh, could this Asian guy be a good actor?
Well,
could this martial arts guy be a good actor?
Right, but wasn't the last reviewer Asian?
Well, yeah, I was surprised when I saw that name, and it's possible I didn't look up his background, nor did I know if I would have been able to find it. But that's true. That does make you wonder what exactly that guy's perspective is as well. I think even though he's giving a very backhanded compliment related to Clint Eastwood, I think it's a good comparison though, because Clint Eastwood started in Westerns, including in spaghetti Westerns, which are really a lot of the root of these kinds of these martial arts movies, and there are also movies that are made in other countries. They're dubbed into English. They're released under other titles, they're seen as this kind of B movie thing. And then he elevated him not only himself, but also those movies became acclaimed, the spaghetti Westerns and the form. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. That Bruce Lee did the same thing here with martial arts movies. I think that's where you're going with that.
Right. Well, I think what I'm more going is like Bruce Lee almost didn't have a chance to do that yet. Right. He died before the movies got to that level. He didn't find his Sergio Leone to work with, is I think what I'm saying.
Ah, all right. Yeah. I mean, we covered Wheels on Meals, the Sammo Hung Jackie Chan one. And I think that would be an apt comparison of like, two spirit animals bringing the best out of each other.
Right. And I mean, maybe Lo Wei was not that person. And maybe if Bruce Lee had more time, or he also started directing himself, and maybe if he had developed those skills like Clint Eastwood as a filmmaker, he could have had a similar career, but that was all cut short. So I think it's just, you look at the beginnings of Eastwood's career, that's similar to what's happening here with Bruce Lee. It just didn't get to grow in the same way.
Less kicks, though.
Right. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure young Eastwood was kicking people.
He was shooting, more shooting, less kicking.
True. But I bet he kicked somebody at some point.
Who does kicks is Frank Dux in the Kumates.
Yeah. We'll get to that one eventually, maybe.
Yeah, we will, bro.
Could be your pick for whatever year that was. I did love that movie.
It's a great movie. Bloodsport.
Yeah, I don't know if great movie is the way to describe that. I'm sure I haven't seen it since I was like 12 though. So someday we'll have to revisit that. Anyway, The Big Boss, not Bloodsport. I had not seen this before. I had only seen one other Bruce Lee movie. I saw Enter the Dragon actually at a showing in a theater one time. And, I'm down on these reviewers who are being sort of condescending, but I don't particularly care for this stuff either, to be honest. And it's interesting, as a part of cinema history, and I understand the value of it, but I find these kinds of martial arts movies pretty boring. So I felt that way about Enter the Dragon also.
I had seen movies about Bruce Lee, including Dragon, the Bruce Lee story.
Oh, I saw that too, yeah.
But I really had never seen a Bruce Lee movie, so I watched this and I watched The Way of the Dragon, and I like the fighting, but I want more of it. And I think because it's sometimes hard, like, when you're used to all that hyperactivity fighting, to go back to this stuff. But I am a fan of, kind of martial arts movies and everything. But I need a lot of stimulation for it, Josh.
Yeah, I think I'm more inclined to enjoy more recent martial arts movies. Like
I agree.
These from the earlier days of it, I think I have a tougher time with. But yeah, more action would have definitely been preferable here in this film.
Jackie Chan, I think, it really did that in the 80s, which is like just blowing out action sequence after action sequence.
Right. They're still maybe finding their way with how to do this. I mean, Lee himself is bringing in new techniques from his time in the US and his own martial arts practice into this film. But my impression that I got from just like Letterboxd and from contemporary people watching this is that this is not held up necessarily as the best of Bruce Lee's work, even though this was, the big debut for his style in Hong Kong cinema. So
I think Enter the Dragon is probably the most well-regarded. And if you felt the way you felt about it, I don't think any of the others are going to change your mind.
That's probably true. But maybe I'd like it a little more if I watched it again. I don't know. Dave, you seem like more of a martial arts movie guy.
Well, I was I think we talked about this on a previous martial arts movie episode. I had seen a lot of these movies back in high school, and I haven't really watched any of them since. But I don't remember if I saw this one. I definitely watched Enter the Dragon, Game of Death, and probably a couple others of his. But yeah, this is essentially a first-time watch for me. And one other thing that I kept thinking during this movie, we've covered so many just incredibly, incredibly famous people on this podcast. But when I started this movie, I was just like, oh, wow, it's Bruce Lee. Like, this is like about as big of a presence as you could get, whether you like the movie or not.
And there's that mystique, I think, too, because he died so young and he only made a handful of movies that is there with people like that, or like Steve McQueen, who we were just talking about, people who or James Dean or someone like that, who just make this real bright impression and then are gone. And I think that's him as well. And you can tell he has that charisma, definitely, sure, even if the movie, if it's not doing it for you. So anything else you want to say about the background of this film, Jason?
Well, yeah, you mentioned the martial arts kind of form that he brought over, which is one that he created based on all of his different studies, called Jeet Kune Do.
Yes. And I remember seeing, like, he wrote a book about it. I feel like a lot of 12-year-old boys enjoyed. I think I had friends who had that in their houses or whatever. I was never a martial arts guy in terms of watching movies or participating. Did you, Jason, ever take the martial arts classes as a kid?
I did judo when I was a kid, and I was pretty good at it. Of course, though, Josh, as we know from Dave's mom, Sunny, nobody looks better in a gi than fat little Dave.
Oh yeah.
Were you inspired by these movies to take up? Was it karate, or which martial art was it?
It was karate, and I went because my mom made me, and I was absolutely terrible and didn't get past the first belt. So yeah.
That sounds like exactly the experience I would have had, except I did like T-ball instead of karate, but I was equally miserable and bad at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this leads to our next Patreon challenge. One new Patreon subscriber, and Josh and Dave will have a martial arts exhibition against one another.
No, good. That's a goal that might actually be achievable, so we definitely can't do it. We can't promise it for that. Yeah. Let's come back and talk more of our general thoughts on The Big Boss. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1971, we are talking about Bruce Lee in The Big Boss, our foreign film pick. And do we want to talk about the plot anymore at all?
Like you said, he comes over, right? his mom was like, you can't do violence. That's what happened to your dad. He did violence and now he's dead, right? That's what happened there, right? So
Is it? And I
so-
wasn't sure, like, did Bruce Lee himself or his character himself, did he like get in trouble back home for fighting, and that's why he had to travel to Thailand to live with his cousins? Was that it?
that might have happened. I
It was
don't know.
unclear.
Yeah, it's a little unclear. So he goes to work at this factory, and the ice factory was a cool setting. I really think that was a unique setting, and I was pretty impressed with some of the kind of shot design in there, where you're like following the ice blocks down the slide and then moving up to a subject or whatever. Or it's like in the foreground and the people are in the background. And then we find out that it's a cocaine smuggling business. They're smuggling baggies of cocaine through ice, which is interesting. But all these guys, they keep going to see. This is the other thing, right? Like there's the manager and then there's the big boss, right? And at one point, the two cousins go to the manager, or the two workers go to the manager, and then they get murdered. And then the next day, they're like, yeah, he went to the big boss, and the big boss is looking for him now. And that was a little unclear as far as like the actual rhythm of the film and explanation. But anyway, they're all working for this big boss who keeps killing people, seemingly unnecessarily too, until Bruce Lee rips off his medallion and says, "Mom, you're wrong. I do have to fight." And then he does a lot of kicks.
He sure does, and also punches and various.
But there's other than that, there's like you said, they all live in a house. There's a lady in the house that they flirt a little, right? So.
I mean, she's also his cousin. We don't know exactly if these are first cousins or whatever, but
we're not sure.
There
is flirtation, don't you think, between those two?
Oh, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is that, like, there's more than flirtation. I think they're clearly meant to be, like, in love or whatever. And she gets mad when he goes off to the brothel and hooks up with one of the prostitutes. And she sees him coming out of there the next day. And then he is kind of ashamed. So, yeah, I think we're meant to believe that they're, like, meant for each other.
Well, again, this is all that, like, naivety of every character where it's like, we'll go to the big bosses and he'll fix everything. And then it's like, hey, we saw you do a bunch of kicks, so now you're the manager of the plant and everything, right? And then we're going to take you out to dinner and then get you drunk and have you sleep with a whore.
Right. I don't think it was because of the kicks. I think the idea was that, right, the workers at one point, they're kind of rebelling. They're like, all our coworkers have gone missing and your answers are not sufficient and we're not going to work until you give us answers. And then the manager gets all his goons to show up to try and beat them up. And Bruce Lee
kicks them all.
Right. Right. And it's not because the manager's not like, oh, you're really good at fighting, so I'm going to make you the foreman. It's, oh, we better neutralize this rebellion by taking the leader and giving him a position of authority so we can control him.
Right. A leader because of the respect for the kicks, Josh. We're saying the same thing in different ways. You're just ignoring one key fact. Do you want me to tell you what it is?
It's the kicks, right?
Yeah, you got it. That's so essential to this film and the ascension of Bruce Lee's character in the film.
Right. Well, I think it's the coworkers respect the kicks. They're like, you took out these goons and we like you.
Yeah.
But the manager does not respect the kicks. He wants to neutralize the kicks. He wants to have no kicks.
Well, he sees, yeah, you're right. Because he sees how, the power of these kicks. And he says, I got to give this guy a better job so he doesn't do these kicks on me.
You guys better rate this movie out of kicks later on.
Yeah, of course. Well, we'll have to give it 1 million kicks or something.
But as you're seeing, there's so many layers to the kicks, Josh. Every time, really, if you want to break it down on a real film criticism level, one might say the kicks are their own character.
No, one might not say that. But I mean, I do think in its own sort of clumsy way, this movie is trying to give you some social commentary about exploitation of foreign workers and, unionizing and things like that. It's not the main point of the movie. The kicks are the main point of the movie, as you so aptly pointed out. But there is more there. I don't think it really comes together very well, and it's sort of clumsy, but there's something. I mean, when we have a lot of this, as you're saying, like dead space in between fights, they're trying to fill it with something.
More kicks would have been how I would have filled it.
Yes, I agree. So, Jason, I know from our earlier discussions that there's a particular aspect of this film that's
I,
not about kicks that you very much wanted to point out. So I'll give you the floor on
I,
that.
I wasn't going to do it, but since you did, when Bruce Lee goes to the whorehouse, and he's with that prostitute, we all agreed, as a fan of the female form, the kicks weren't the only thing that was perfect in this movie. That lady, she had some wonderful breasts, Josh, wonderful breasts, and that's going to be the sound clip that people take
Right.
out of here and just
Yeah.
say. But I'm not saying that in a skeezy way. I'm just saying, like, hey, man, sometimes you see a physical specimen, like when we saw Pumping Iron, and you're like, man, that Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's really put together. This whore, she had it going on.
She did look very good. And I think, as I was saying when we talked about this earlier, like watching it, I wondered, are we going to see some nudity here in this movie? Do these movies usually have that? And we sure did. And I'm sure that helped it with the drive-in audiences in the US. And I don't know if that's part of what they were thinking of.
Yeah, probably, right?
Maybe, I don't know, and of course, this is a time when the Hong Kong film industry is entirely separate from the Chinese film industry, which is not how things are now, and had a greater freedom to do stuff like that. I would imagine that a movie made in China in this period maybe wouldn't do something like that.
Well, for the record, having spoken to both of you before the episode, you both agreed with me on the boobs, but you're just not owning it
I'm
right
not
now.
disagreeing with you. I am in agreement. I was just trying to place the boobs in context.
Yeah, they're second to the kicks, Josh.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. But I
Mhm.
mean, also interesting. I think that character is maybe played by an actress, but the background players there in the brothel are actual prostitutes that they recruited. And shooting it in these areas, Wikipedia has long descriptions of how miserable Bruce Lee was in this kind of dirty, poor area in Thailand where they shot this movie. But it gives it a level of authenticity that is more than just about, martial arts fighting.
Yeah, the setting was good, but he didn't at one point, maybe on the climax, he sprained his ankle really badly, and then they took him to a hospital, and then he got a infection or some type of virus there. So he was when he wasn't kicking, he was barfing or pooping probably. So there was a lot of stuff he had to overcome there, Josh.
Right, right. And I'm sure not insignificant amount of that is producers trying to cut costs and do things
No way.
cheaply. Yeah, imagine that. And already they had paid him. I mean, that was one of the reasons, right? He signed with Golden Harvest versus the Shaw Brothers, is because they were willing to pay him more. He had already had this reputation as a star or a somewhat well-known actor in America. So they're probably paying him more than they would pay any Hong Kong performer, and so they got to cut costs somewhere.
Yeah, those Green Hornet reruns were big in Hong Kong, so he was already a well-known commodity, like you're saying. I found it interesting. They were trying to make a movie, I think an English language movie called The Silent Flute, with James Coburn and Bruce Lee, and they went over to India and scouted locations, and they couldn't really get it done. And James Coburn was the one who told Lee to go make a movie in Hong Kong, man.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that was the thing, is that Bruce Lee was trying to parlay that success of the Green Hornet into an American movie career. And that, there really, at this time, I don't think there were any Asian American movie stars. He was trying to do something that really no one had done before. And so he had to go back to Hong Kong, where they're more receptive to him being the star of a movie, in order to make that happen.
Josh, how about this fun fact? And something I noticed in the movie but didn't understand, but now I do understand. Lee badly cut his right hand while washing a thin glass. The wound required 10 stitches and a large plaster, which he just wears in scenes with no
Right. I mean,
explanation.
I guess I did notice it in the movie, and I just assumed, well, he probably hurt his hand punching something or whatever. Like, it's, in a way, I was like, oh, it's refreshing that we're showing that the like badass martial arts guy could have gotten injured, but I guess that's not what they meant to show.
Yeah. Well, you can't mess with him, because even if you think you're a big boss, you'll get bossed around by him.
True. True indeed. So, Dave, how did this sort of match up to your memories of Bruce Lee movies?
I mean, it was pretty much exactly what I expected, which is the action scenes are, fun. All the fights are fun, but the rest of it is kind of whatever. But I have two standout moments that I did want to bring up, and you guys did not bring up either of them so far.
All right.
So speaking of the kicks, there is a scene where Bruce Lee kicks a guy through a barn, and it makes a man-shaped hole.
Yeah,
which is
that's good.
incredible, wonderful moment in this movie. And my favorite scene, of course, in the entire movie is when Bruce Lee has to fight a bunch of dogs. And it's just like 30 seconds of him and the dogs jumping through the air over one another, like to keep dodging each other.
Yeah, you can't have him. You can't have him punch a dog in the face. That's not gonna.
That would have dropped this movie multiple stars, but this made it go up in stars because it was just so wonderfully wacky and cartoonish and ridiculous.
Well, I asked Dave to do a little homework. Did you do your homework, Dave?
About the score?
There's 3 different versions of this score, so I was asking Dave to check them out and give us the feedback on them.
Yeah, I can't say that I did that, Jason, but the score in the movie itself, though, was good. I liked it.
I'm tired of carrying you around, Dave.
What I liked, I mean, speaking of animals, though, I mean, you have those dogs are like the guard dogs at the big boss's mansion. And I loved that when in the beginning of the final confrontation between Bruce Lee and the big boss, the boss comes out of his mansion for some reason holding a bird cage, and he's just holding it there. And then when they're getting ready to fight, he like tosses it up in the air, and it perfectly kind of hooks itself onto a tree. Like, okay, birds, go hang out over there. And then I love that Bruce Lee is like, fuck you and your birds. And he like I forget what he does. He throws something or
he's always got these throwing darts.
Yeah.
In different movies.
And he knocks over the cage. And at first I was like, oh, did he kill those poor birds? But no, he lets the birds free. Like, you don't get to kill my cousins, and you don't get to cage these birds.
Nice. Yeah. Well, you know what, Josh, what I was waiting for at that point was Strozek to come out and say, why did you release the minor birds?
Strozek reference. All right.
Wow.
What if Bruce Lee and Werner Herzog had somehow been able to hook up if Bruce Lee had kept?
I'd have been very happy with that.
I think that would have been fantastic. Yes. So, yeah, I can name all these things that are like cool, but honestly, I just found this movie mostly tedious, to be honest.
Kicks and boobs, baby.
Yeah, those are cool, but for the most part, there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of sitting around and talking, and the fight scenes are brief. And I think we got to emphasize again, you watch this movie and it's 45 solid minutes of Bruce Lee not fighting before you even get to that.
So, I mean, Way of the Dragon's pretty similar. I'm like,
is it?
Come on, dude, just fight already. And then they like tease him fighting, and then they're like, nah, get back to work. And I'm like, no, don't go back to work. Do fights.
Right. So. I do want to give, some credit to James Tien, who, was a big martial arts star and maybe wasn't thrilled about being overshadowed by this dude who'd come over from the US, but he does some good fighting there in the first part of the movie before his character gets killed.
Agreed.
So, should we rate this out of 5 kicks?
All right. I'm into that. Yeah, I mean, I think we're in agreement. The stuff that works is the stuff you expect to work, and the filler around it doesn't. So it gets 2.5 kicks for me. Kick.
Yeah, 2.5 kicks for me as well. I think I'm glad that I've seen it as far as, its impact on film history, impact by kicking film history, but it's just not for me. So, Dave, how do you rate this?
It's probably really a 2.5 from me, but I went with 3 just because I was on high from that dog scene. So, yeah.
There he goes, backtracking Dave.
Yeah.
You can never trust his Letterboxd.
Mm-hmm. Well, I did give it a 3 on Letterboxd. So,
it is consistent there. So, but
no, he just backtracked it on.
It's okay to change. I feel like it's okay to change your mind, right? We reflect and we learn more and we reassess our opinions about movies. That's okay, right?
Josh, have you ever either A, kicked anybody, or B, been with a whore?
Those are very different.
But both relevant to the film.
I have not done either of those. I mean, unless maybe when I was a little kid, I kicked somebody. I don't recall, but not that I can remember. No. How about you?
I exclusively only kick horse. No, that's not true at all. So I've done my share of kicking. I have a brother, so we fight. Not anymore, obviously, but when we were kids, we would fight. And
you kicked him?
we would kick and punch and, do all the things,
I have a brother too. I never kicked or punched him.
Well, aren't you guys just so, above us, apparently? So I've
Anyway.
never been with the hooker, though.
Okay, well,
So any hookers in the audience, holler at me.
I feel like we need to take a break now, and then we'll return to talk about the legacy of the Big Boss. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1971, we are talking about our foreign film pick, The Big Boss, starring Bruce Lee. And we've talked a bit about Bruce Lee's legacy, because he did die so young. He just made a few of these movies, all of which were pretty big hits. Jason, you mentioned Way of the Dragon, and I've seen Enter the Dragon and Fist of Fury, as we said with The Confusion. Those are some of the big movies that he made, but he was working Game of Death, which we mentioned, had to be finished after he died. And all these movies, I think, not only were they successful when they initially were released, but they continued to reach new audiences over the next decades and influence martial arts movies that came later and so many martial arts performers. And, he's also, because of his development of Jeet Kune Do, is held up as this sort of like, I don't know, almost like a deity within the world of martial arts. He's really been sanctified that way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's when a big star dies young and in a mysterious way, right? Their legend grows beyond that, I'd say.
Right.
And it would have been great to see what he could have done. I did find this quote from his wife about the premiere of this film at the Queen's Theater in Hong Kong, which I was happy about. It said, every dream that Bruce had ever possessed came true that night. The audience rose to its feet, yelling, clapping, cheering. It was almost impossible to leave the theater. We were absolutely mobbed. And then this is a fact to back it up, out of 4 million people in Hong Kong, Josh, 1.2 million paid to see the movie.
That's crazy. So like
Wow.
over a quarter of the entire population went to see this movie.
Yeah. Only to be surpassed, like you said, the next year.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think we, not having experienced it firsthand, maybe don't realize just like the level of popularity he had. And right, it's like, when rock stars die young, it's like Jimi Hendrix dying or Jim Morrison or someone like that. I mean, people just take this worship of them to a whole other level.
Right. And I was thinking about John Belushi. Of course, the tough thing here is like those deaths, we know how they happen, drug related deaths and everything, but there's a real mystery around Bruce Lee's death still to this day, I think.
There is. Yeah. When I was trying to find reviews and I'm looking on newspaper archives for Bruce Lee from 1973, the year this was released in the US, and there's so many articles and all of this speculation, like, did marijuana kill Bruce Lee? Like ridiculous stuff like this. So yeah, it is still a mystery. I'm kind of fascinated the genre of Bruce-sploitation that sprung up after his death, and all of these other martial arts actors who took on stage names of basically like Bruce Lee, but spelled differently.
Yeah, Bruce Lee L.I., right?
Right.
Yeah.
There's Bruce Lee L.I., there's Bruce Lee L.E., there is Bruce Lee L.E.I., and then other ones who would just appear in movies with similar titles, like they're made up as if they're sequels to his other films. And there was a whole documentary about this called The Clones of Bruce Lee. I think, or no, there was a documentary as well. That's actually a martial arts movie from this period, but I forget what the title is, but there was a documentary not that long ago about all these people. And it's just such a weird thing that I feel like would not be able to exist now in a more, in the world of the internet or whatever, where people would realize, or that this confusion would not exist. But there was a whole subgenre that continued after his death.
And of course, Josh, don't forget about Bruce Leroy from The Last Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps going. And I feel like even the look of Bruce Lee, if you read a comic book or watch a cartoon or something like that, and they want like martial arts guy or whatever, the guy is going to look like Bruce Lee.
Yeah, Jason mentioned Liu Kang before this. There's like at least 20 video game characters that are just Bruce Lee.
Well,
Right.
including all those like sounds too that
Yeah.
Lee makes while, kicking.
Yeah.
Yes, all the kicking. Lo Wei, as we said, the director of this film, huge figure in Hong Kong martial arts cinema as a filmmaker, a writer, and a director and a producer, also as an actor. Obviously helped launch Bruce Lee's martial arts career here. As you said, Jason, launched the career of Jackie Chan in a movie that was basically a Bruceploitation movie. It was New Fist of Fury. That was a sequel to the Bruce Lee movie. And Jackie Chan had actually appeared as a stuntman in the original Fist of Fury. So, kind of taking the lead after being in the background there.
And Jackie Chan, like Bruce Lee, tried to break in America as a movie star and had to go back to Hong Kong to really kind of cement his status as a worldwide leading man.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jackie Chan has had more successful efforts over time.
Well, but I'm telling you, like, he did try to come to America twice and make movies,
Right.
and they failed before he like really kind of exploded on the Hong Kong scene.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think even after he was big in Hong Kong, like when he did like Rumble in the Bronx, in the US, and that was, people saw it, but it didn't reach that same level that he was later able to like appear in blockbuster movies and stuff like that.
Dave loves him as the Japanese co-driver in Cannonball Run.
Oh, Jackie Chan is in Cannonball Run?
He's just got like a cameo as, I think he's playing a Japanese guy, and he's in like a jumpsuit and a helmet, and he just like is in the coat, like that like sidecar, and that's it.
Nice.
Yeah, I have not seen Cannonball Run.
Ha ha! Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise. What more could you want out of a movie?
Probably a lot. I mentioned James Tien. Again, he was a very prolific martial arts star. He continued acting in Hong Kong movies all the way through 1996, appeared in movies with Jackie Chan, with Sammo Hung, with Andy Lau, worked with John Woo, all these big names of Hong Kong cinema. So his career continued for a long time. Han Ying-chieh, who plays the big boss, also had a long Hong Kong movie career into the early 90s and appeared in New Fist of Fury alongside Jackie Chan.
All right.
There you go. Any other people you want to talk about here? Anything else you want to talk about with the legacy of this movie?
Josh, I think that we have gotten this done pretty well here, Josh. I think
anybody you want to kick?
Really, really good about it. So I want to kick a lot of things, Josh. That's a fair point. Yep. I'm good. I'm good to do some kicking.
No kicking you want to get off your chest right now?
I'm going to save that for the horse.
All right. Well, on that note, that is the big boss. And that is this episode of Awesome Movie Year. You can kick us online and on social media.
Of course, that would only be emotional kicking, as you know, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at awesomemovieyear.com, Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram. I'm Jason Harris Comedy, or Jay Harris Comedy, and all the things. I don't need to tell you about Go for Jason on Letterboxd because you all already follow me there. Hey, if you're on Letterboxd, you watch this or any of our other movies, tag it with kick.
Don't do that. Come on.
Awesome Movie Year. Tag it with Awesome Movie Year. How about that?
It's hard enough to get people to tag it the right thing. Don't tell them the wrong thing. You can find some old things from me at joshbellhateseverything.com. I am at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky and Letterboxd. And again, tag your review Awesome Movie Year on Letterboxd. If
That's
you watch
what I
any of
said.
our movies. You did say it eventually. Thank you. And check out our producer, David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media at Piecing Pod, and tell us your favorite martial arts movies over in the Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces Facebook group.
Please, we would love to know. Jason, what's in our next episode?
Josh, what's the point? It's the subject and title of our next movie.
Oh, yes. It's our animation pick. So tune in next time for The Point. And thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.
Kick.